What's up, guys? JP back at you once again, bringing you guys day number 4 in my 10th annual 31 Days of Horror. This is a series in which we watch and review 31 horror films in 31 days, all during the month of October, leading right up to Halloween. And continuing along with our Arrow video spotlight, for day number 4, I decided to go with 1984's The Initiation. I keep wanting to say The Invitation, but it is in fact The Initiation. Now, this is a film that I've never seen. I have heard of it, but it didn't connect in my head when I picked this up, because I remember this cover here, the one that's on the disc and the back, and then also the cover art there with the candle. That's the one I remember. So I didn't connect that this was the same film, but I have seen this cover floating around before, and I always thought this was like a TV movie from the 70s. But it turns out it's a slasher film from the 80s. So this film was directed by Larry Stewart, who was primarily a TV director. There was another director attached to it originally, but he dropped out due to production complications, and Larry Stewart hopped on board, and he was a TV movie director. So I had heard another reviewer say that a lot of the shots are framed like a TV movie, and I kind of almost get that vibe too. Anyway, this was a first time watch for me, and I never really heard too much about this film, but I'm glad I actually checked it out. So there's actually quite a little bit of stuff going on in this film, plot-wise, especially for a mid-80s slasher. You almost expect there to not be as much plot. The main plot is that there's a group of sorority sisters that need to do some sort of initiation, and they need to break into this department store, aka mall, and I believe steal the uniform of one of the mall security guards or something along those lines. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. The point is, a bunch of kids are hanging out late at night inside this department store slash mall, and there is a killer who begins slashing up the college students. Meanwhile, we have this other plot involving our lead character, where she has these really weird dreams where she sees her mother and her father in bed together, and she stabs the father, and then this other guy appears out of nowhere and catches on fire, and she doesn't really know what's going on with these dreams. A professor tries to help her. There's also a weird love interest there with the professor, and then it all sort of has like this weirdo twist ending that you really don't expect and couldn't probably guess. Also stars Clu Gulager, which is pretty much the only recognizable face that I know in this film, of course from Return of the Living Dead fame, and honestly like a bunch of other films. It's a pretty interesting slasher. Like, the story is a little ridiculous, but in slasher films you almost appreciate the more weird ones, or any uniqueness to it that kind of makes it stand out amongst the dozens and dozens of slashers of the 80s, and I feel like this one does. Plus it has the unique setting of a mall slash department store. Considering there aren't that many horror films that actually take place in the mall, you know, obviously Dawn of the Dead, it's actually pretty cool. The acting is pretty decent, and the characters are pretty decent. You know, it has a little bit of nudity. The kills are very fair and acceptable, so you have that to look forward to. The pacing's pretty good. There's just a little bit of a slow point towards the later end of the film. I found this to be quite the enjoyable slasher, and as a big fan of slasher films, I'm actually extremely happy that I finally checked this one out, and I'm actually pretty happy to own it in the collection. Also, this has a really cool cover. The Blu-ray looked good as well. So with that said, that is day number 4. I'm going to go ahead and give The Initiation a solid 7.5 out of 10. So we'll see you guys tomorrow with our 5th and final Arrow video review. So with that said, peace out.